I grew up in a divided home. My parents were always at odds. I was homeschooled, taught by my mom, and she had a real knack for teaching. She even bought a piano and taught me everything she knew. Playing old church hymns or just random songs I found on the internet. It became my escape. My mom and dad were fighting again one night. I'd been practicing a new tune. My mother opened their bedroom door and yelled some profanities. She kissed me on the head and walked out. I remember my dad getting the divorce papers. I felt so bad for him. We had a talk one night, and he told me I'd have to go to public school. I was nervous, but after a few months, I made some friends and managed to fit in. My dad started going to the bar after work, leaving me to fend for myself. He'd sloppily unlock the door, fumbling with his keys every time. Most nights, walking in on me in the middle of playing piano. My dad always yelled at me to keep the noise down, that he wanted to sleep. We never had a great relationship, but I was sure that he loved me. Sometimes he'd come in and ramble about how bad of a wife my mom was. He never outright blamed me for their issues, but it was always money problems. I'm sure an extra mouth to feed didn't exactly help the situation. After a while, his drinking got even more out of control. He stopped going to bars and just started buying tons of alcohol from the liquor store. He'd come home with bags of booze and go right inside his room. I would frequently hear bottles smashing and yelling, so I just played my piano to drown out the chaos. One morning, I started getting ready. I noticed my dad's coat was still on the rack. I knocked on his door, thinking he'd just overslept, but he didn't answer. I turned the knob, already feeling in my gut what I'd find. My dad's lifeless body laid belly up on his bed, his mouth full of liquid. He'd passed in his sleep. I dropped to my knees, traumatized, abandoned, and disturbed. On top of his passing, there was a lot of legal issues after that. Since I just recently turned 17, there was a risk I'd be sent to a boys' home. I wish I could say that I was sad that my father had passed, but we weren't that close. Don't get me wrong, I loved him. He was my dad after all, but he made a lot of terrible choices in his life. In the will, I'd been left the house. The courts decided that I was eligible to be emancipated. I'll save you all the legal jargon, but I was basically disowned from my parents. My mom's still nowhere to be found. I got a job after school to earn a few bucks to keep the bills paid. My counselor at the school really did a lot for me. I usually spent my free time at home, playing piano. It was the only shred of peace I had, feeling alone and deserted. I just started on a new page, pausing as my hand flipped to the next sheet. But before I pressed the first key, I heard clapping coming from the other room. My head whipped around as I played more softly, trying to hone in on the mysterious applause. I was scared at first, frightened by the abrupt noise. Maybe it's my father, admiring my music from the afterlife. As the clapping continued, now getting closer, my spine shivered in a sudden moment of realization. My father never liked my piano.